Somebody said something to me. Who was it? I think it was Professor Elliott. He was like, because I told him, I was like, I'm not on social media. I'm not on any social media, right? And then he was like, you need to be, right? So I finally opened up, was it September? I finally opened up an Instagram account. I don't go on it, but I actually posted something that day. And I was singing on it too. So I was like, I just left it. Because to me, I was like, I'm not happy with it, with the way my voice sounds. But everybody else probably like, oh, it's fine. So I just posted it. So anyway, let's go. What are we doing? What are we talking about?
Right.
You're not recording right now, are you?
I was gonna let you go. I like.
Okay, so now I'm not gonna look there.
That's funny.
All right, what you got?
All right, so boom, welcome back to another episode of the Black Caliber Podcast. I'm here with the lovely Dr. Hope.
Hey y'all.
She's a little tired today.
That's all I got. Yes, I am tired today. We are making love happen in the department. So
it's that sounded a little weird, but it is Valentine's Day.
It is. That's the love. Yeah.
Right.
We're doing love today.
Right. And she is the department chair of the business department.
I am.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today?
Right. So what is
What's
that?
on your mind? The business department. Do you want me to just talk about the business department?
Sure.
Okay.
You can talk about your business department.
I don't think it's my business department. I always like to say I get to serve in the business department. Let's start there. So yes, I do have the pleasure of serving in the business department as chair. So the business department right now, we offer degrees in accounting, finance, information technology, and management, entrepreneurship, and economics. That's a whole mouthful. But so it's basically professional careers. I had the pleasure of serving with some pretty awesome colleagues, pretty awesome faculty and students. So I love what I do.
So what was your journey like to become department? I know when you first came or choose Edge.
Actually, I tell my students in my economics class, my journey to even being here was kind of weird. I went to college. Most people don't know this. I went to college as an architectural engineer major. And my freshman year, I got into an economics class. My professor that was teaching economics, I just remember sitting in the front of the class and I got everything he was saying. Everybody was like, oh my God, it's so boring. And I was sitting at the front of the class like, oh my God, I love this stuff. So I actually changed my degree from engineering to business because of that one economics teacher. And I spent about 2 decades in corporate doing jobs from accounting, finance, managing teams, traveling abroad a lot. Yeah. And so from there, I made a decision finally to make the transition here. So this is my 6th year here. I've been here 6 years. Started off teaching economics, finance, and accounting. And
4 classes? You started off with 4?
I started off teaching across all 4 disciplines. Yep. And so 2 years ago, I was appointed as chair over this department. So it's been a good ride.
So did you go straight through? You went straight from undergrad, master's?
I did almost. I only took off 6 months in between undergrad and graduate because I wanted to, it was my first time working a real job out of college. So I wanted to get 6 months to get acclimated. But I started my master's 6 months after my undergrad, went straight through. And then I took a really long break before I got my doctorate. The only reason why I went back for my doctorate is because I knew I wanted to teach. And that actually came about as an accident, not really an accident. But at the time, at my job, I was training a team that was in India and they were doing accounting. And the accounting that they were used to was not the same as the accounting in the US. So I found myself having to teach them a lot, going back to basics. And when I started doing that, I realized I actually liked doing it. And I was like, hey, I think I might get to the teaching. And so that's where that transition happened. And so that's why I'm here.
So what made you choose Louisville?
What made me choose Lincoln? That's a good question because at the time when I knew I was going to teach, I wasn't sure if I was going to stay here up north or whether I was going to go back down south. I had family in North Carolina. So I was kind of on the fence of where I was going to be at. And somebody actually asked me that question. Um, and my answer to that is I can teach anywhere, but I love being in this space where I am teaching Black and brown kids that look like me. I love the intimacy of Lincoln University, the family setting. I love knowing all my kiddos. That's what I call them. I know y'all grown, but I call them kiddos. I love knowing all my kiddos' names. And I love having that personal interaction. And honestly, I wouldn't be anywhere else. This is where I want to be at.
Yeah, I love Lincoln. Lincoln's so fun, right? So when you went corporate, what was that like? Like, what was it really experience? Was it like how they show on TV? It was like, show up, you get there, you go home, or like, what was it really?
Nah, I worked my butt off in corporate. I think because of the area in corporate I was. So when I finished my undergrad, I got an MBA in finance right away. And that wasn't a thing for you to go straight through at the time. I was the youngest person in my classroom. And because I was on a finance track, most of the time I was the only female in the room and I was the only African American in the room. So I had to get used to being the only female, the only Black person in the room and being surrounded by a lot of males, Caucasian males that were a lot older than me. So a lot of times you kind of almost got that look like you're out of place. But I knew that that's what I wanted to do. So once I started down that track, I kind of started with, my first job was an investment accountant. So I was the person that was actually calculating the mutual fund prices that were published in the newspaper. And from there, I moved into financial analyst jobs. And then it got to the point where I was leading teams. And with the last job that I had before I got here, it was a multinational company. So I got a great chance to travel all around the world, honestly. And that to me was exciting because no 2 days were the same. No, I wasn't just sitting at the desk. So this is why I tell my students, accounting can be interesting. No 2 days were ever the same. No 2 months are ever the same. It is more than just sitting at the desk. It's the interaction with your colleagues. It's, in my company, we were acquiring different businesses every month. So it's always learning something new about a new company. And of course, traveling, meeting different people. It was never the same. Worked a ton of hours, which I don't recommend, but I did at the time. So.
Mm-hmm. So you said like you were the only woman.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
like, do you feel like that motivated you, or like it could hold you back at times? Like, how do you feel like it affected you? Because the fact that you noticed something.
For me, I used it as motivation. Even up until right before I came here, like I said, the company I was at, Fortune 500 company, operating all over the world. The office that I sat in, there was a wall literally of managers, on the wall with the window offices. I was the only African American on that floor that was a manager. Everyone else was not. There were a couple of females, but I was the only African American female. For me, it's always made me work harder. You almost have to, because you go in the door and it's like the finance field. And usually when you're talking about investments and finance, that's not a field that's dominated by females, number one. And it's certainly not a field that's dominated by African American females. I know that's changing, but at the time when I was working, it was still very much, I was used to being the only person of color and the only female. So it made me work harder. And I'm not necessarily mad at that. I got a lot of good experience in. And for me, it was a good thing. It pushed me, put it that way. So it was a good thing for me.
All right. So then you said you like teaching, but what made you be like, you know what? I'm really got me. Look, I'm going to get out of here. Can you make it sound like it was great?
No, I love the learning curve because if I wasn't there and I didn't have that experience, I couldn't bring what I bring to the classroom now. So now when I'm in the classroom and I'm teaching accounting or I'm teaching finance or I'm teaching economics, I'm not just teaching out of the book. Lived it, worked it, understand everything that goes behind it. So I wouldn't have that if I hadn't spent the time in corporate. What made me realize it was time to go. I remember sitting at my desk. Anybody that's an accountant knows that end of the month, beginning of the month is just you're working nonstop. You're just trying to close the books. And I remember sitting at my desk one day thinking, I'm working 60, 70-hour weeks for what? Um, and even though you're closing the books, I felt like I needed something with more meaning behind it. I was like, I want to make a difference. Like I want to actually make a difference. So that was part of the leap from going from corporate to education. I felt like I had gotten to a point where I needed to give back. I had a chance to take all this in and I wanted to give that back. And I wanted to give it back in a meaningful way. What better way to do that than teaching?
Okay. So then you get to Lincoln,
Mhm.
right? So what put Lincoln on your radar? Because you said, like, you talk about how much you love Lincoln. What even put Lincoln on
You
your
know
radar?
what? I'm going to say that was divine intervention. And I'm so serious when I say that because I applied to more than a half a dozen schools, a couple of them in North Carolina, a couple of them up here in Pennsylvania, because I wasn't sure if I was going to move yet. And so honestly, my prayer was like, Lord, wherever you want me, like open up the door. And I remember going to the interview for Lincoln. I actually was not supposed to be here on main campus. I was interviewing for a job actually at University City at the graduate school. I wasn't even coming to main campus. I was like, that's too much of a drive. I can get on the train and go downtown. But when I went to that first interview, that was fine. It was the second interview when I met the provost at the time, Dr. Ramsey, and her and I having a really long conversation. She is the one that was like, no, we need you on main campus. And that's how I ended up here. I wasn't even supposed to be on main campus. So it's just things worked out. And as I started going through the interview process, I got excited about being a part of changing and, being a part of all the new things that were going on in the business department. And that's what kind of piqued my interest. So I really did.
So you came here
Mhm.
teaching all the classes.
All the classes.
And then, so how was the move up to becoming arbitrary?
So to me, that kind of was a mixture of I feel like as one of the things that I share with students when we're talking in the classroom, um, we talk about how someone can be really good at something and that makes you a good person to train. But to be a manager or to lead a team, you need that X factor. Um, and so when I came in, I really honestly observed the first year or two, just kind of got my bearings because this was my first time being in a school institution setting at a higher level. So I really spent the first 2 years kind of just taking all of that in. And from there, it just felt natural. I think my curiosity drives me. So it's like, well, why is that happening? Well, how can we fix that? Or why doesn't that work? And then I definitely feel like there's a little bit of heart to it. I absolutely care about what happens to the students. I care about what happens to the faculty. And I think that desire to want to support and be there for the faculty and the students, it just naturally pushes you into the position of chair. So it wasn't that I came in looking for that. Honestly, if you had talked to me when I first came here, I would have told you, no, I'm not doing that. I just want to teach. But I think just my natural gravitation to wanting to support both sides, it just was the right fit. And yeah, love it.
And coming into the position, like, what was like the one thing you wanted to put, like the big thing you wanted to change?
Big thing I wanted to change. So ironically enough, when I first started my first year as chair, our department was going into a program review. So for anyone who knows what that is, you're basically taking the whole program inside out and you're pulling apart every class, every program, looking at learning outcomes, looking at the way the department is built. But for us, because we offer 4 majors and 6 minors, that's a big deal. So my first year as chair, I got a chance to look at the whole department inside out. Um, and it was a lot, but I appreciate it because it helps you to know what needs to change, what doesn't need to change, where your strengths are, what you can improve. And in that regard, I think I'm a little bit of a fixer. I like fixing things. I like going in, seeing a problem, being able to fix it, and then step back and get to see the fruit of that. So
Right. But that didn't answer the question without answering. That was a very political answer.
Rephrase the question.
All right. So what changes have you feel like you implemented?
I've got to do a lot in just 2 years. So one of the things that I've implemented is a refresh to a lot of the programs in the curriculum. And I also had the pleasure of being able to bring in more full-time faculty and part-time faculty. So, and why that's important is because I got to be in the front line of putting new individuals in front of the students. And honestly, I think when you talk to students, any student, they're going to tell you a big part of their college experience is how they interact with their teachers in the classroom. So for me, it was super important that as we were out looking for new instructors, that we pay attention and make sure that we are intentionally seeking people who are engaging, who care about our students, who care about their disciplines, who are passionate, if I could say that. And so I feel like that's one of the better things I've been able to do for the department is breathe that breath of fresh air into the department, both by bringing in, resources and teachers who are passionate about their fields, passionate about teaching Black and brown kids, and also being able to go through the mechanics of breathing life into the program. And honestly, with all the fields that we teach and the degree programs we're in, accounting is changing all the time. Management is changing, information technology, all of that. So it's really important that we stay up to date with what's going on outside of the classroom so that our students are ready to go when they graduate here.
So what is your way of making sure you're engaged with students?
In the classroom, being present. And when I say being present, I'm not talking about just showing up to the classroom, because anybody can just show up in the classroom and kind of sit up front and talk at students. And most of my students actually know that is not the way I teach. Actually, one of my classrooms, they're like, "You always walk around." I do. I walk around the classroom when I'm teaching. I like to engage the students. I want the conversation to be both ways. I don't want it to be a session where I'm just talking at you. So for me, one of the ways that I keep the classroom engaging is not just walking around, engaging them in conversation, but finding new ways each time I teach to make it relevant to them and to bring in, to the degree I can, things that are going on right then, in society. So it changes every semester. Even if I'm teaching the same class from semester to semester, making it fresh by changing up how I'm approaching a subject, so that it's fresh for the student.
Right. So this one might be controversial.
It's okay.
What was your favorite year teaching? Like favorite class? Why? Like what made that class special for you?
I don't know if that's controversial, but I think my So I'd have to say this, and it's not meant to be controversial. It's probably a little bit personal. I'm finding that this year is my favorite year. And there's reasons for that, but this year feels like my favorite year. I feel like this is if I can call it breakout year, this is the year where I feel like a lot of what we've been working on behind the scenes and kind of doing quietly is you're actually seeing the fruit of it. So I feel like this year is the best year. Not that I love any of my previous babies any less, but I'm really enjoying this year. Okay. This year is cool.
Yeah, this year is a lot of fun.
It is.
I get to be here.
It is.
It's like I'm always over here, so it's like seeing how you actually like think about the department and all that.
It's funny because if you asked me how I thought I was doing in the first year, one of the things I started doing in my classroom 2 years ago, like before we would get to midterms, I would kind of do a check-in with my students, like, how am I doing? Like, how's the class going? Is this working for you? Because I'm always concerned if the method and the style that I'm using in the classroom isn't reaching the students. And I tend to do that check-in with them like before midterms. And it's funny when I do that, usually students kind of give me the look like, why are you asking? But I do that on purpose because I want to make sure that I'm reaching them and that they're actually getting the content. But I'll reverse that and say, when it comes to being chair and running the department, I treat this the same way. I'm constantly checking in with the faculty and with the students. Because if I'm not serving the faculty and the students, then I'm not really, what am I doing? So I find my joy in being able to support them and seeing them thrive. I love being able to get behind the students, get behind the faculty, and support them so that they can shine. And I'm only laughing because when we first started talking, and I was telling you the reason why I don't really like this is I don't prefer the spotlight be on me. I prefer to make my faculty shine. I prefer to have the students shine rather than the spotlight be on me. I'm a great supporter.
Right. So what do you want to see out of this department within maybe let's say like next 5 years, your 5-year plan?
Oh my goodness. I'm excited. I'm excited about the growth. I'm excited. I could go through each of the programs and tell you that for different reasons in this country, we're poised for a perfect time for our accounting majors. I'm telling them that this is a perfect time for them coming out with accounting degrees because there's this great retirement roll-off happening with accountants. So if you're in that field, you're graduating at the right time. I could say the same thing about management, about finance. So I'm specifically excited about seeing the department grow. I'm excited about putting more things in place that give our students more hands-on experience. And then honestly, I just love when the students come in and they're in front of teachers who are excited about their fields and passionate, and you see them engaging in the classroom and excited about, going to internships or going on job interviews. And I love hearing from our students a year or two after they've left here and they're thriving in their careers. And it's like, they got it. They learned that while they were here. So I think I'm excited about all of the new things that are going on here, but I'm also excited to see each of the students start their careers, start their paths, start their journeys, and be successful and come back and say, hey, y'all got it right. That means more to me than anything. So that, along with the growth, is probably what I'm looking forward to, like in the next 5 years.
Okay. And if there was any advice you would give anybody coming in to Lincoln and thinking they want to be a business student?
Honestly, I tell the students all the time, I'm a big fan of people following their passion. And that doesn't necessarily mean a career or a job, but one of the first things I'll ask students about is what are you passionate about? What do you like doing? What's your talent? What's your thing? And then finding a way to work that into, something that they love. So I think for students coming in, get connected to your professors. I think is really important. Get connected to your professors. They are your best resource. That's what I would say to a student coming in. But I would also say buckle down and work. We do have an awesome time laughing over here. But our students also get to work. And each of the professors do that in a different way. I think that's important because it instills in them before they leave to start their careers. No, it's important to work. It's important to be able to do a job, do it well, and do it in a time frame that you're asked. And you can also have some fun on the back end. But yeah, that's the advice I would give a student. To get connected to your professors, be ready to work. You can be surprised where you go from there.
And can I just get you to say this is the Black Caliber?
This is the Black Caliber podcast.
Distinction at its finest. See, that wasn't too bad.
Oh my God.
That wasn't too bad.
Yes, it was.
No, it wasn't.
I never